Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel, or if you are new, welcome here to my channel in general. Welcome to our new office and our new apartment. I think this will be my new filming location when I'm filming inside my house for the next 2 years, so get used to it. Very excited, but that's not why you're here. You are here to officially hear the health issue I've been dealing with, my diagnosis, and why I had to quit carbs and sugar in order to kind of save my health. Before we get into that story though, I do need to say as kind of like a disclaimer, I do not have this health issue because of the way I ate growing up. My father is a professional chef and my mother is an Italian who loves to cook and went through a very strong organic and natural food phase while I was in elementary school. So I was not one of those kids that grew up eating candy and french fries. As a matter of fact, my mom banned most candy from the house. We were not allowed to have lollipops and we couldn't eat anything with artificial food coloring. So there's no reason in my childhood for me to have had these issues. It's just how my body is, and that's okay. So if anyone wants to point a finger at my mom or dad for how they fed me, they literally did everything right, okay? Getting that out of the way, let's jump into why I had to quit sugar and carbs. And this is going to be a journey through the ages, people. We are going back as far as when I was 9. So let's get started with my journey to diagnosis. We are headed to our first stop, which is 4th grade in the United States. 4th grade is ages 9 to 10, so let's jump back in time to when Rachel was approximately 9 years old. My 4th grade teacher thought that I might have ADD. I was distracted very easily and didn't like to focus. She spoke to my parents about this and they agreed I could have ADD. So what they decided to do was not consult a professional. My 4th grade teacher took it upon herself to print out a piece of paper with a smiley face, a neutral face, and a sad face and tape it to my desk. And she would walk around during class and tap one of the faces to let me know how my focus was doing. And at the end of the week, if I had focused well during the week, I would get a candy, which in hindsight, I should not have been given a candy. But we'll get to that later. After 4th grade, when I leave this teacher behind and enter 5th grade and get a new teacher, everyone seems to forget about the fact that maybe Rachel had ADD, including myself, who was never really told I might have ADD. I was just told, Rachel, sometimes you're not focused and your teacher might let you know when you should be more focused. That was all I knew. But so let's skip 5th and 6th grade, jump into middle school. So when I was around age 13, the doctor told my mom that I had high triglycerides. High triglycerides, it refers to a type of fat found in the blood, and there are many different reasons and causes and why this fat is found in the blood. But I was told no information other than, Rachel, you should stop eating cookies during lunch, because I had a cookie that was like this big during lunch every day, which is not uncommon for a 13-year-old, and it was like my one sweet a day. But I was told to stop eating those cookies, and I did, and my triglyceride problem went away within a couple weeks, and it never really came back because yes, I have had regular blood work done throughout my life, so that was just a little blip when I was 13 that was related to sugar, but again, everything will kind of fit together later on in the video. When I was 14, I got my very first yeast infection. Yay! It is extremely common for women to get yeast infections. Healthline says 3 out of 4 women will get at least 2 yeast infections in their entire life, but don't get it twisted. Men can have yeast issues too, and once you get one yeast infection, it becomes increasingly common to get them more and more throughout your lifetime, similar to concussions, but for some reason doctors are just kind of like, interesting, and aren't really talking about the reason why. And again, we'll get to that later in the video. So let's head over into high school, where I am crushing my favorite courses. I am an excellent English and history student. I love art, but I am struggling in math and science and Latin, but not so much as math and science. And I see the return of some old friends, distraction and lack of focus, especially in math class. But there's a new guest to the party, and her name is sleepiness. I was not sleeping through classes yet in high school. Sometimes in math, I just couldn't help it. I was so bored that I did fall asleep, but I wasn't like passing out in classes from sleepiness in high school. Not yet. That happened in university. So by the time I begin university, let's get a count now. I have had ADD that no one has spoken about since when I was 10. I have high triglycerides that kind of showed up and went away. That made me stop eating cookies for a bit. And by the time I enter university, I am having consistent yeast infections, probably every other month or two. I'm dealing with this issue. Let's jump into university where everything comes to a climax. The ADD that I have been ignoring since God knows when becomes debilitating. I call my mom on the verge of tears because I feel like I just need a diagnosis and I need to be medicated at this point because, like a soft fine silk, life is just slipping through my fingers. I don't have control over anything anymore. I am constantly late to class because time just stops in my brain while I'm getting ready. And anyone that struggles with ADD knows that this is real. It's not just us spacing out. Time literally moves differently in our brains and in our bodies. We just don't process time like normal people. So I'm constantly late to class. I'm constantly forgetting things on my way to class, or I can't find things and they're all misplaced and I don't know where anything is and I just blank out. So that makes me late to class. I am nervous to drive because I'm just so preemptively afraid of spacing out and something happening. And it's all these little things that add up that make me kind of afraid and nervous to go about life because I'm always afraid I'm gonna forget something and I'm always spacing out and I'm not quite present anymore. And even in my most favorite classes, it was getting harder and harder to pay attention, even when I desperately wanted to be paying attention. And now we have a whole new player to the game. Sleepiness, not tiredness, sleepiness, and not even just sleepiness, fuzziness, fogginess. There is a low volume but constantly present desire to just power down. And what I mean by power down is like my body's battery is drained. I'm mentally drained in the sense that I felt drunk while sober. I would get into these states where I was walking around and it felt like I was in a dream. And I remember one time I was waiting for the train and it felt so much like I was in a dream that I said to myself, like, I knew somehow that if I fell in that moment, I wouldn't feel pain if I hit the floor. That's how cloudy my cognitive presence was, that I was just so sure that if I fell, I wouldn't feel pain. So I go and get diagnosed with ADD, which was very easy. I passed with flying colors, and I am given stimulants. I tried multiple stimulants. I hated them! They were the bane of my existence. They gave me anxiety that I had never had before. Suddenly sunlight was too bright. I was nervous to do everything. My heart was beating out of control. Doctors agreed I should not take stimulants. And through this whole ADD thing, I really researched it and I developed some strategies for myself and some tips and tricks that I work through to keep myself present and productive. So I don't take anything. Since 2017, I really haven't taken anything for my ADD and I am managing it myself. And I think of this ADD diagnosis journey as a side quest because it kind of helped me prepare for how to deal with myself for later situations. Do I deal with ADD every day? Yes. Am I still ultimately, at the end of the day, a productive person? Yes. So let's fast forward just a little bit. It is almost a year until I graduate now, and remember that constant kind of desire for my body to just power down. Well, it's gotten so bad that I believe to think that I have mild narcolepsy and I just can't control when my body wants to shut down like this, which made sense. You can't blame me. So I go and get a sleep study done, which is where this amazing gem of a picture comes from. This is what a sleep study looks like. So I'm tested for narcolepsy and my results come back 50-50. Literally 50% of my results say yes, narcolepsy, and 50% say no narcolepsy. But because there wasn't a majority on the yes side, I couldn't be diagnosed with narcolepsy, which in the moment was devastating because I really just wanted answers to something. But looking back, I mean, what's the cure for narcolepsy? Well, there's no cure, but what do you do for narcolepsy? You take stimulants. What did my ADD side quest teach me? I hate stimulants. So really looking back, I mean, it was good to get the sleep study done, and the doctor did say, like, you don't have narcolepsy, but your body does require more sleep than other people probably. Like maybe instead of 7 or 8, you should be getting 10 hours of sleep. So I took that information. It's still very valuable. And I think it did ultimately improve my quality of life to get that sleep study done, even if I don't have narcolepsy. The diagnosis of narcolepsy is now off the table, but what's this? What's also been getting worse and worse and worse and worse? My yeast. My yeast has risen to the point where it is no longer one yeast infection every other month. It is constant. It is always present. It never goes away. I'm at the point where I just call my doctor when it gets bad and say, hey, I have a yeast infection, and she goes, okay, and orders me in a prescription. I don't go visit her, and notice how I said get bad, not when it shows up. Just, it's always been here, just when it gets bad, I'll call the doctor. That was the point I was at in my life. And then like the physical symptoms went away for a little bit, and I was like, oh, cool. And then like a smell started happening that I wasn't used to. And of course I Googled it, and of course what came up, STDs, what didn't make sense for me in a long distance relationship to have, STDs, but what did I go get tested for anyway? Imagine the surprise of the doctor when they asked if I was sexually active, and I said, I haven't seen my boyfriend since Christmas, and it was spring. I was tested anyway, and guess what I had? A yeast infection. It had just mutated and was living somewhere else in my body, which was great and a sign for more doom to come, but I didn't know that. But this was actually kind of a life-changing meeting, because this was the first doctor, I'm like 21 now, I am 21, my first doctor since I was 14 to say to me, have you been tested for different kinds of yeast? And I said, there are different kinds, because no one had ever told me before that there were different kinds. And she said, yes, it could be a different bacteria causing different issues. You should get tested. And I was like, oh my God, I should. But it was a few weeks until I graduated. Andy was coming, I was graduating, and then I had to move to Korea. So I regret it, but I didn't have time to get tested for which strain I had, which I regret doing. I should have done that, but that's in the past. So I graduate and move to Seoul, South Korea. I get yeast infections twice while I am there, and I already have a women's health doctor that I am familiar with from when I studied abroad in 2016 and had yeast issues. So I go to her the first time, I just kind of let her do her thing, and then the second time I have to go in, I ask while I'm leaving, I'm like, hey, is there any test I can do to see what kind of yeast this is? And she goes, nope, there is no test. So, you know, I've been doing kind of my own research, and I'm like, hey, are there any diet changes I could implement to help this issue? And she goes, nope, changing diet won't help anything. So what does she do? She gives me the same prescription pill I have been taking since I was 14 or 15 years old. I am, 22 now? Do the math. Taking a pill, a prescription pill multiple times a year for 8 years. What did my body do? Become immune to it. I can no longer take prescription pills for yeast because my body has mutated to be immune to those pills. So thanks, doctors that weren't curious enough about my ongoing health issues. So I'm immune to this pill, and I'm desperate because not only is my yeast not going away, but my sleepiness isn't going away either. And I'm walking around, I'm increasingly feeling like I'm drunk while sober, and I remember being in a Daiso here with Andy, and I felt like I was in one of those cognitive states again where I just felt like I could fall over and not feel pain, and I was at such a low point that I was hoping, I was like, please just faint, please collapse and take me to a hospital and let someone do some test that they haven't done before and find something that's the cause of this issue. Like, please just let me collapse here in public right now and force someone to look at what could be wrong with me. I was so desperate for a solution to this because I hadn't been born like this. It was getting increasingly worse and worse as time passed. So totally out of options and not really trusting doctors anymore, I spent all of my extra emotional energy desperately researching yeast and I literally Googled, I feel drunk while sober, and what I came across was something called brain fog. And I also came across something called Candida. Since middle school, I believe I have been struggling with Candida. Candida is a naturally occurring microorganism that in small and appropriate quantities is actually quite good for your gut health. It detoxifies, it helps digest food, it helps boost your immune system, but when the colonies grow out of hand and there's too much of this microorganism, they actually become significantly harmful. Candida, more notably Candida albicans, can cause brain fog, they can cause yeast infections, they can switch between yeast and fungal forms, which is a very smart thing for a bacteria to do to avoid getting caught by medications, which is scary to think about. But it causes a whole other plethora of issues that I won't get into now, and this is very science-based. And if you guys are like, wow, Rachel, your story sounds like something I've had to deal with, I really encourage looking up Candida albicans and what it does to your body. And the two sources, I have my notes here, the two sources I have been loving this past year, they are the Ultimate Candida Diet Program by Lisa Richards and Dr. Eric Wood. First of all, I am following their diet plan book. And someone else that I really super love, he's a naturopath, but he also has a YouTube channel. His name is Eric Becker, and his YouTube channel is called The Candida Crusher. He makes tons and tons of content for the most specific questions, like I'm supposed to be carb free? Is quinoa carb free? Can I have quinoa? And he'll make like a 10-minute video on pros and cons of eating quinoa. He's a fantastic source of information. I love him. Thanks to him, my go-to snack is popcorn, and I don't feel guilty about eating the carb of popcorn. Please check those people out. I have fused their information together to create a lifestyle that I think is really gonna work for me. If you've been following me for a year, then you know that this time last year, I started my first no sugar, no carb journey. And guys, it was like switching from 480p to 4K, baby. My mental clarity was sharply in focus. I felt faster. I could talk faster. I could think faster. I wasn't so slow. I wasn't so late anymore. It just felt like everything that I needed out of a prescription stimulant I was getting, but not from a drug, just from eating right and treating my body right with the food that it needed to regain its strength and fight its way back to health. My yeast disappeared last year and I felt incredible. It was the best I had felt emotionally, mentally, physically in years, I would say since high school. But then I fell off the wagon a bit after we went to Taiwan last year. I was so excited to eat food, and I was so excited that my symptoms were gone that I was kind of eating more and more sugar and carbs again, to the point where my symptoms are back. Well, they were back a couple weeks ago. Not nearly as bad as they were before. So I know that my first Candida cleanse really did amount to something, but the yeast did come back, so I'm doing it again, and this time I am not going to fall off the wagon, or if I do, it won't be as much as last year, and I'm going to really start thinking this as more of a lifestyle than a diet, because this really needs to be a constant change for me and my body. So it took me a little while to get comfortable saying this out loud, but here I am. Hi, I'm Rachel, and I have Candida. Is this a real doctor-approved diagnosis? No. Do I feel like I need one? Absolutely not, especially since the same doctor that saw me struggle increasingly with yeast from ages 14 to 21 never questioned anything, especially since a second doctor told me there was no test to be done and that diet changes wouldn't do anything to help me, especially since after 1 week of diet changes last year, my symptoms vanished. So no, I'm not looking for a doctor's diagnosis, because frankly, some doctors just are not curious enough anymore. They want to push a pill at you and let that be that. They don't want to go into why, they don't want to go into how, they don't want to go into anything more than that. And I have been unfortunate enough to have those doctors in my life. And it's sad because I wanted to be a doctor. I spent all of middle school thinking I was going to become a pediatrician, and then I got to high school chem and realized I can't do math or science to save my life. But I've just become jaded at doctors because they're just not curious enough anymore. Food is my new doctor. Eating right is my new medicine. I know this is probably going to be a long video, so thank you so much to everyone who watched until the end. I'm only making it because I know in high school and university, if I had a YouTuber that I followed just suddenly come out with a video like this out of the blue, it would have saved me so much time and so many tears. I would have felt like you saved my life. So if I can help even just one of you, this would have been worth it. I will put my neck on the line so that your health can be better. If you guys want updates, I'll give you updates. If you guys want meal or recipe ideas, I will give you day in my life content. Or if you just want to talk about similar issues, like if you've been going through brain fog, or you think you might have Candida, or you do have Candida, and you just want to talk about it, because frankly, this community is very small, and I'm under the impression that people only really find this community through being desperate and searching and searching and searching and searching. So if you're like, wow, someone that knows what I'm going through, feel free to drop a comment down below or DM me on Instagram. I'll always be there too. A lot of my journey did involve some mental health issues like the ADD, and I do think that going through that prepared me to kind of take care of myself better emotionally, physically, mentally, and we can't ignore different mental health things that are going on in our lives. I don't blame my parents or doctors for not trying to get me diagnosed with ADD as a kid. I'm not mad at them at all, but everyone walks a different road, and it's only when we keep our roadmaps totally secret from each other that we find ourselves lost in the dark. So here is my roadmap, here is my story, and I hope it sheds just a little bit of light on your own story and your own road as well. Thank you so much for watching, guys. Now you know what I'm dealing with. I was embarrassed for a long time. I'm not embarrassed anymore. Life is too short to be embarrassed about something as natural as this. I just hope more education comes and doctors start recognizing that it's a thing. So yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. Again, let me know if you want any non-sugar related content, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye bye!
Don't give up, just hold on tight. It'll be alright.